You are listening to the Balls in the Cloud podcast series. If you hear something you would like to see from this episode, or want to dive into more of what Balls in the Cloud can offer you, visit Balls in the Cloud on our Canvas page, or connect with your Residence Life coordinator. We hope you enjoyed the show, and as always, go Bulls!
Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Johnson. I work with residential education, and we're here today to talk social isolation. We have some friends from student wellness, and we have some of our awesome resident assistants here to talk a little bit more. If each of you can go ahead and introduce yourselves before we kick it off, that would be awesome.
I can start. So I'm Malu. I'm a third-year student here at USF. I'm an RA in Kosovo, and I am a literary studies and journalism major.
I can go next. I'm Raymond. I'm a third-year student studying cell and molecular biology, and I'm a REACH peer health educator with the Center for Student Wellbeing here at USF.
My name is Matthew. I am a resident assistant in Beacon Hall. I study finance and theater.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen Koviak. I'm a health promotion specialist with the Center for Student Wellbeing on the Tampa campus.
Thank you all again for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you a little bit more about how life has changed on campus this year and how that has impacted how we're feeling. So to just get us kicked off, what do you think about the social distancing guidelines on campus? Like, what words or emotions are describing how you're feeling right now as you're here or not here?
Well, what I was thinking about when you said that question, I didn't necessarily feel like lonely or these sort of words really describe my experience personally, because it has been like very, I feel like there's people around me, just like seeing people in the dining halls and things like that. But I would say that the experience could be defined as like individualistic in a way, is the word that I would use, because I don't feel necessarily lonely, but my experience is just like I go to the dining hall, I get my food, I eat, I do my things, I do my assignments, and like it's very my own things. And so that's how I would describe the experience, which is very interesting because there's people around, but it's like my own experience and the things that I have to do and like stay in my own path. So it's a dual, like an interesting dualism.
I think it's something that's been very interesting because I've also it's kind of like your two separate worlds. You know, it's how you have the individualistic like aspect of everything, and then also too is you do still have some of those social interactions with others, going to the dining hall, like seeing people walk around, but there's still a part of it that it does feel a little bit, you know, like you're shut off from the rest of the world, and in the fact of itself, it feels a little bit isolating where, you know, you're not necessarily able to have a lot of the social interactions that you maybe necessarily want to have.
Yeah. Matthew, you are a senior now, so you've been around here for a while. So it's very different from your previous experiences on campus, right?
I mean, definitely. It's just kind of like trying to think of like compare how campus used to be and like how it is now. It's definitely like the social atmosphere of like how you would see people like walking out and about, talking, getting to know each other in like those common spaces. You're not really seeing that as much, and it's mainly shifted to an online virtual format, which sometimes has its own sets of difficulties as well, getting to know different people.
I completely agree with Matthew about the social interactions. For me personally, I feel a little bit disconnected from everyone. I feel like it's been hard to have social interactions with other people, especially when you're wearing a face mask. You can't really see their expressions and emotions, and you know, it's kind of a little bit different from last year where I would usually meet up with a friend every day, and now it's just kind of limited because of the climate that we're in today.
Yeah. I totally understand what you're saying about the masks, because like for me, so I'm from Minnesota, right? In Minnesota, you wave. Like you wave at strangers, you wave at everybody. It's just a thing. And so like when you have your hands full on campus, as I usually do, carrying everything, you can't really wave, but then you like just flash a smile because that's what you're supposed to do. But even when I do that, then no one can see that, and then it just feels weird. It's like there's not even even if you are 6 feet apart, but wearing a mask, you're not really able to exchange just like the nonverbals, and that feels weird too. At least for me as a Minnesotan. Is anyone else experiencing stuff like that?
It's true. I haven't mastered the art of smizing. You know, the smile with your eyes that Tyra Banks trademarked. So it's definitely weird because I'm like that too and want to be able to greet people or you know, when I see them. So I totally empathize with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk then. How are we coping? Like, what are you all doing to talk about that? Like, if we feel independent from one another, that feels weird. We're not able to give the same nonverbals or the greetings that we've done in the past. So what are you doing to cope with that social isolation of it all?
For example, like it's already been like 6 months, so I feel like the toughest part for me is already done. Like still, it's a matter of getting used to how things are, but I felt like I wasn't socially distant with people. Like it was more like a physical, and it's a change of words that like I think the university is implementing more now. I didn't feel socially distant from people. I really felt my support system present in my life. So even though I was far away from my parents because I am an international student, I know that they were always there for me, and that especially with the pandemic, they were like, we started texting much even more with my sister. For example, I talk to her all the time now, even though we couldn't see each other during the summer. So I didn't like, I felt distant from them physically, but my support, like knowing that they were there regardless, really helped me. And knowing like having a support net was very, very important to me. And yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was there anyone on campus, Malu, specifically who also kind of formed that support network for you, just like here in the States because your family is so far away?
Yeah, well, since my freshman year, I've had a consistent group of friends. We're all international students, so we knew exactly what all of us were going through. Like it was a very similar experience, so that is great because I actually like lived with them during the whole summer, and I wasn't used to living with my friends. That was a completely new thing. So it understand like having people around who really understood my situation and who were going through the same thing really, and like we're friends, so we already care for each other a lot, so that was very important for like going through those tough months of the summer that were like crazy for everybody, but I never expected having to stay here in Tampa. That wasn't something I was planning on doing, so it really affected my experience personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. What about anyone else? Other coping things that you're using?
I completely agree with Malu about having a good support system. It's so important for your health and well-being. And so what I've been doing is instead of calling and texting old friends and family, I've been FaceTiming them. I feel like having like a virtual face-to-face interaction is really helpful to see their expressions and their emotions, not physically, but you can see them, on the screen and see what they're feeling like. And, staying in contact with everyone that is also important.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, I'm slowly getting my grandma to know how to FaceTime now. Like she knows how to answer. She doesn't know how to call, but she knows how to answer now. And so that has been really good. We've been trying to have lunches. So I'll be on my lunch break or whatever. And we talk during the day because she goes to bed so early. I don't know. Anyway, Kathleen, do you have any coping strategies that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think those are all great that you mentioned, like finding ways to connect with those people that are your support networks is really important in building that up. Finding other ways to connect with people, like your classmates. And I know a lot of our students have like group texts with their classmates or coworkers or things like that. So that can be helpful in just like forming those connections with people. And then also make sure you're doing things for yourself and like use that extra time, maybe to explore a new hobby or interest or something like that, or student org. like for me, I've been trying to learn Spanish, so I've been doing some Duolingo and like trying these like little things. We've been doing lots of puzzles and stuff too. Some mental stimulation. Just something to like look away from a screen too is also nice. Because I feel like we're all looking at screens so much. So extra activities that can kind of help with that. Would recommend as well, but something that you have fun with and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that walks have been really important for me, to get away from the screen. And like thinking about that, a lot of our students spend so much of our time on, not just students, I do too, on social media, which is just another, like, that was like your break, right, previously, and now you're kind of looking at a screen again. Do you all think that that social media is helpful, or does it like exacerbate those feelings of isolation? Like, what do you think?
I think like with social media, it kind of is that like double-edged sword. It can be very helpful to like connect people, but then also it can do the exact opposite with creating that isolation amongst others, where it's like, oh my gosh, like I wish I could connect with this person. I wish I can spend time with this person. And so kind of making somebody feel even more in isolation than they already are while trying to use these platforms to connect with others. Through virtual means. I think it's all kind of how you navigate it and you kind of set the expectations for yourself, especially with using those platforms, like setting realistic expectations of like, I want to do this to get more sociable and kind of put myself out there, but in a safe manner. I think in doing that, it kind of helps you not maybe go towards the path of feeling more isolated while using social media.
Yeah. Matthew, what are some of those boundaries that you've set for yourself?
I've had to limit my time on social media, not gonna lie. Because sometimes it can get very over consuming and you just kind of you fall down a rabbit hole and it's just kind of like you keep going and hour by hour. And it just kind of tunnels you in. You can't really find your way out of it. So kind of making sure that, like, I'm limiting my time. And then also too is just kind of just telling myself what my intentions are with using social media, being like, I'm here to connect with people. I'm here to get in touch with people. And just kind of setting those reasonable boundaries for myself to make sure I'm okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Raymond, what do you think? Social media, good, bad?
I think if you use it properly, it can be beneficial to you. As long as you're not mindlessly scrolling through your feed for hours and hours, that's when it starts to get bad for you. But I feel like it's a platform that you can use to stay in contact with friends and family, also to meet new people. So it can be helpful to you.
That's true. We do have I hope everyone has joined the class of pages at this point. I know a lot of students have met people through there. Did you all, I know both of you have been around for a while at this point, but did you all meet people on those pages?
So I actually, because I transferred to USF, and so kind of like my very first thing to kind of get to know people was like through social media, because I wasn't originally from Florida. So I was like, how am I going to get to know people and feel connected to the campus? That was definitely like a really great first step to kind of be able to get to know people and get to know my environment that I'm about to step into.
Yeah, people definitely share like what they care about on those pages, and that's a good way to just intro yourself, right? What about when you see like your friends on social media struggling with social isolation? Like, what are some signs that you might notice?
I think it might be hard to notice on social media, but if you notice someone like just becoming a little bit more withdrawn, or like if they, are just telling you that they just kind of like lack some interest in doing anything, and kind of more like apathetic towards things, maybe just try to reach out to those individuals and see if there's anything that you can do outside or virtually to get together and see what might help them feel more connected. USF has a great counseling center as well that is free for students, so you can always refer someone who may, not know what to turn to, is really feeling lonely or homesick or things, to check out their resources. They've got different groups, and you can meet with someone one-on-one. So always good to let people know about that resource.
Say it's definitely harder to know if someone's going through social isolation in a virtual environment, especially with posts. But in real life, you can tell by their, body language and how they're speaking to you. But I feel like some of the hints that you can receive online are basically what they're posting, maybe on Snapchat or Instagram. Sometimes they could be posting some very emotional things that they're going through, and that could be a hint where you could, step in and check on them and see what's going on.
And, the nice thing about being on campus is I feel like, just like Kathleen was saying, there's always someone to tell. So even if like I don't know what to do, just tell somebody. Any students who are on campus can talk to their resident life coordinator or their resident assistant or their community manager. Any students who are not on campus, we have staff in the wellness center. You all have an academic advocate. There's anonymous SOCAT reports you could put in, public reports for student conduct and ethical development even. If you were just worried about someone, those are so many ways that you can just tell somebody else, because that is sometimes the best way to intervene. So one of the things that I think it's hard to remember back to, but 6 months ago, 7 months ago, we weren't necessarily in a pandemic, but people still, you still get lonely. That's a really normal emotion to have. So if you were to think way back when, what did you do to cope with social isolation or loneliness then, and how does that translate now? Do you think you'll use the same coping mechanisms, or they kind of change a little bit? What do you think?
I think like the big thing with me is through everything pre-COVID to now is adaptability. I think that's been my big word for everything, especially with like how I'm feeling, my mental state, my physical health. It's kind of adapting to a new normal, or the new normal that we're in. Whenever I feel like lonely or isolated, I would try to kind of put myself out there. It would be more like physically, being like hang out with friends, going on walks, going on bike rides, just like going to different places with friends, going shopping. Not necessarily the safest thing to do currently with like large groups of people. So I've kind of had to adapt with a lot of things being kind of like on a virtual format. So I FaceTime family members. I do Zoom calls with my friends, and we do like trivia nights just to kind of like lighten up the mood and kind of just have fun with each other and be able to enjoy the company of one another. Even though we are physically distant, we don't have to be socially distant with one another. So just kind of also too, like checking in with myself, making sure I'm okay. And if I do feel any of that isolation, making sure that I'm reaching out to somebody to make sure that like I know there's somebody there and I know there's support. And so just kind of leaning on those people that I know that are here for me, I think is important overall.
Yeah, you got to know who your people are. And it's okay if they've changed. I've had random friends contact me since this whole thing has started, and we have become so much closer than we've ever been. And like just a constant, hey, how are you? Like, what's going on in your life? What are you looking forward to now? And that part of it has been kind of fun for me, at least. I don't know if anyone is old enough to have old friends to contact them now, but I am. So that's what we're dealing with here. Raymond, what do you think about that? What did you do previously to now, and are they the same or different?
Yeah, for me, so I would say it's about the same. It's just reaching out to someone and talking to someone. It's just now that it's kind of hard with social distancing guidelines. But like Kathleen said, there's always someone there for you, even if it's your friend, family, or even USF. We have a great community system here, and there's always just someone to talk to you. And I feel like, hey, you could just say, hey, I'm feeling a little down today. Do you want to talk about it? And, there's always just someone there.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I think that both of you have talked about a little bit is that when you're talking to people or connecting, it's not always just like going on to a Zoom call and connecting or like just talking, right? Like you're doing an activity together, because I don't like, there's so many times that I can tell the same story about how I spilled my coffee on the ground, right? Like it gets old after a while to say the same thing over and over to other people. So I really liked when my friends and I did trivia nights and stuff like that too, like Matthew was saying. So that's something else to consider, right? It doesn't always have to just be the talking part. Kathleen, I know we talked about some of those resources that are available on campus. Is there anything else that we didn't cover yet that you want to make sure that we shout out?
Those are, yeah, we talked about some great ones. I know you all in residence education have some great resources for students to get them connected. If you're struggling with classes, the Academic Success Center is there for you to support you academically. Student Health Services is there for you to support your physical health. So if you're worried that you might be sick or need some boost, they're still there for you. So hopefully we're all taking the precautions that we need to prevent the spread of the virus and the flu. But we know things happen, so make sure that we don't spread it farther to take care of that. And then our office, we have some great online virtual resources that we've been putting out recently as well. Our website has like virtual health education tools section. So there's some like videos and activities that are great for like stress reduction and sleep. We know sleep's super important too, and time management and that sort of thing. So encourage students to check that out. And I know you all linked to that as well, Corey. So appreciate that.
Yeah. On Bulls in the Cloud, everyone should check it out. It's open to any student with a USF email. So you can go on there. We have a relaxation station, like Kathleen was talking about. We have links to every sort of resource on campus that you could possibly want. And if you don't have it, you can email me directly, and I will point you in the right direction and get you connected. So I know that we're coming to the end of our time together, but I thought I really like this question, and I'm pretty sure Raymond threw it out there. So I want to say this. What's one kind thing that you are going to do for yourself after this meeting?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start this one. I feel like for me, it's practicing self-care and practicing mindfulness. For me, this might be a little bit different from what we've been talking about, but having a good sleep schedule is really important for your health and well-being. And, I haven't fully transitioned into a good and healthy sleep routine right now. I still have like a couple nights where I'm staying a little bit late and doing some work. But once I get that down, I feel like that's going to be beneficial to my well-being.
And it's a work in progress, right? You don't have to be perfect right now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Matthew, what about you? What is one kind thing you're going to do for yourself?
I think it was very important when you mentioned it's like you have to be realistic with yourself. It's going to be a work in progress, and especially with me, self-care, like Raymond said, I think is just so important. Checking in with yourself, making sure if you're okay, that's okay, and if you're not okay, addressing that. Kind of realizing like where are you coming from? What are you feeling? Making sure I get a better sleeping schedule, I think is really important, because I can definitely understand with what Raven has said, because sleep is very important, especially too as your sleep hygiene, with making sure you don't get sick, because making sure you get an adequate amount of sleep, prioritizing like my work schedule and kind of also giving myself like the time to do work, but also the time to relax too, because I don't want to always be constantly doing work. And so I want to make sure I have the time to myself to relax and do things that I love and spend time with people in the virtual space that I love as well. That's probably one of like the biggest things I'm going to do for myself after this.
I love that. Kathleen, what about you?
That's awesome. Those were both great answers. I am going to cook myself a nice dinner. And one thing that kind of, you guys were talking about sleep, so it got me thinking, something that helps me like get in the mood for sleep and to wind down is to have some herbal tea. And I know it's hot in Florida, but I still like to have it in the evening. I still enjoy my hot drinks. So I think I'll make myself some herbal tea tonight before bed.
I love that. You got to own it, you know? Like I said, North, I totally understand.
I'm from Michigan, so I know the cold.
That's so good. One kind thing that I'm going to do for myself tonight is I am working my way through a 30-day yoga series, and I am on day 24. Yes, I started it in March. Progress not perfect. That's fine, but I am going to do day 24 today. So I'm excited to keep chipping away at my goal very slowly, but very kindly for myself. So any final thoughts before we head out?
I think just like knowing like you are supported, there is support, there are people that are here for you. If you ever need to talk, if you ever need help, there's resources that are here for you to make sure you're okay. Because social isolation, it is real, it is here. And just kind of being realistic with yourself and making sure like you're okay and we can kind of all get through this together.
Adaptability is super important, and knowing like, you know, this isn't permanent. There will be a time when we can be back together again and give hugs again. And so I think that the more that we do our part and do what we can to, you know, get through this, then there is that light, and there'll be a time when we can get back to that sense of where things were before.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me tonight and spending some time talking about this. I think it's super important for us to acknowledge, yes, social isolation is a thing. Loneliness is a thing. It is a normal emotion to have usually, and it's an even more normal emotion to have now. And we can work together to connect with it, with the people that we need to, and to seek out resources if that's what we need to do. Lots of people are here. So thank you all so much for spending some time.
You have been listening to the Balls in the Cloud podcast series. If you heard something you would like to hear from this episode or dive into more information that was shared today, you can visit us on our Balls in the Cloud page on Canvas. Or, if you want to, connect with Residence Life Coordinator or RA. We hope you enjoyed the show, and as always, go Balls!